Hi, this is Monica Muir, and today I want to show you the features that you would get with Enterprise Solutions that you would not find in QuickBooks Premier. So this is not everything about Enterprise, but it really is to kind of, a lot of times in meeting with clients, trying to help them decide what version would be best for them. So this is really highlighting the differences between the products. So I'm in Enterprise Solutions here. I am in the Accountant's Edition of Enterprise. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And I do have a feature comparison chart. So if you don't have that, it should be on the same web page as this video. But if not, you can go to muirassociates.com/choose-QB as in QuickBooks.html. If you have any problems, then you can just contact us and we'll be glad to send one to you. So I find the chart is a nice way, kind of an objective way to review products, but I always like to actually see what it's like. You know, it's one thing for someone to say it has this, but I'm like, so what is it? How does it really play out, or what does it look like? So for starters, with Enterprise, you can have up to 30 users. Premier can go up to 5. Most of my clients are dealing with job costing and some with inventory, and so I always recommend at least Premier for those clients. But when you start getting around 3 or 4 users with Premier, I start saying, well, maybe we want to take a look at Enterprise because there's just so much more that it does, especially for inventory, but also for job costing, that maybe that's worth taking a look at. So that's what we'll take a look at. So one is how many users you can have. The other is another one, if you can have up to 30 users in your books, oh my gosh, do you want to control who can do what? So if we go into company and go into users and set up users and roles, then notice, first off, that it said users and roles. I'm going to flip over into my, into my Premier, and if I go into company and set up users and passwords, so roles is not even an option. If I go in here, then notice that there is no place to add roles, and I'm just going to click on View Users, and these are the areas that you have where you can control permissions. And then you create, print, or reports, and then a couple more details in here. So this actually totals up to 24 different areas where you can control access. So it certainly is a good start, but when you go into Enterprise, then when I go into the role list over here, first off, there's a lot of predefined roles, which is really nice. So you assign one or more roles to a user. So you can use these, you can copy them, you can edit them, you can create your own. I don't recommend creating one with a person's name. You know, if that person were to leave and someone else come in, it's just maybe easier if it kind of has to do with their job responsibilities that you might want to do. And but so just those are just, I guess, my 2 cents for what it's worth. And when you take a look at a role, I want you to see, I'm just going to click on Edit so you can kind of see what this looks like. And notice there's a lot of different areas now where we can actually control access. So there's none, full, partial view. That will change somewhat depending on what you click on. So I'm looking at the AR right now. And if I were to click on, say, banking, that notice, first off, if it has an empty circle, it means you have no access. A half circle means you have access to some things. So here in this case, they have access to making deposits. If you wanted to let them have access to any of the bank accounts, notice you get to pick. In QuickBooks Pro and Premier, you can't pick bank accounts, but here you can. And in the centers, maybe you want them to have access to the employees, maybe to view the list, but you don't want them to view the payroll information or be able to add anything there. So you can start to really have some fairly tight control. You can even start to control more as far as the types of reports that they can see, which you really can't do very much of in Pro or Premier. So that's really important. And I can't remember, I showed you just so you can see the list of all the different roles that are already here. And like I say, you can add your own. So then when you're over here, what you would end up seeing is the user's name and then the role that is assigned to them. And then you can view permissions if you kind of want a summary of what you're looking at on there. So that's a big area. Another, so for Pro and Premier, I said you have 24 areas. With Enterprise, it's 115, so big difference. Another big difference is how big your list can grow. So I'm going to push the button F2, and that will let me see over here on the right how big my lists are. And this is a sample file, so it's not very big, which yours is most likely much bigger. But if I look at names, there's a couple things I want to draw your attention to. Customers, vendors, employees, and other names are actually all in one table. So that's one big number, and that's why you can't have the exact same name because they're actually all in one table. There's a limit. You can have up to 14,500. So for many of you, that's not a big deal, but I've had a couple clients call me in a panic because they could not add another customer. Their list, between being in business for a long time, their list had grown that much that they just couldn't add anymore. And of course, they've had employees come and go, vendors come and go, so that list got really large. So there is a cap on there. There is not an Enterprise. The other area where there's a cap is with your items. And so Enterprise, Pro and Premier would have a limit. I'd have to double check. I believe it's 29,000. But with Enterprise, it's unlimited. So generally the ones that are interested in that for my clients are the ones that really have inventory where they need to deal with. So it's not just that you have one item. It comes in different sizes, different materials, different colors, yeah, you name it. And so it lists out multiple times quite often. And then if you're building assemblies, it gets even more complicated. So that's another area that you have a limit in Pro and Premier. You do not when you're in Enterprise. If we go down to another area that's different is if we go into your custom fields. So some people don't use this. I love the feature because there's additional information I like to track about my clients or maybe about materials or services. But you can define fields. You can do that in both. When you're in Pro and Premier, your limit is here. You say who you're going to use it for, period. And then people can put in whatever they want. So in the case of a date, there's all sorts of ways to type dates, right? But with Enterprise, you can actually control the type of date or data that you have in here. So for a date, notice that you actually have choices for dates of how you want them to format the date. But if you were going to do, say, if you were going to add another field, maybe like the source of a referral or something, you could actually create your own drop-down list. So that does a couple things. It makes the data entry go faster because they can just click or key in a letter or two and it pops in for them. It also makes it much easier if you're going to do reporting and you want to sort or filter. You can do that on a field that you actually had specified. And then that you can have it required on transactions and lists. I like that on one aspect because it's information that you really, really want. But my experience has been is that for any reason you didn't have it, you couldn't save it at all and get back to it. So I guess I find that personally I don't use it. But for some of you, you might find that that's really useful. You can also do custom fields with items. Let me back up. So with Enterprise, that not only can you customize them, but you can have up to, well, in Premier, you can have up to 7 custom fields total. And with Enterprise, you can actually have, let me go back in here, you could actually have 12 custom fields for a customer if you wanted to. I do, just so you know. And you can have a total of 30 for customers, vendors, and employees. So you can't do 12, 12, and 12. And most likely you probably wouldn't need to, but you can have up to 30. Again, with Pro and Premier, you're capped at 7 there. Another, so if we go into your items list, you can also do custom fields in here. So if I go here and go to custom fields, again, I can define fields. With Pro and Premier, you're limited to 5, and with Enterprise, you can go up to 15. So, these fields will show up for all of your items, but again, that gives you a lot more flexibility as far as what you want to do. So if you wanted a field for the MSRP, if you need extra fields for SKUs or whatever it is that you need, size or pallets or how it comes, that kind of thing can be helpful on there. And then I'm just going down through my chart here. So with Premier, if you have the Accountants Edition, you can work in 2 companies at one time. When you are in Enterprise, it doesn't matter whether or not you have the Accountants Edition. You do have the ability to work in more than one company where you can do 2 at a time. So again, I find with as a lot of companies actually do have, more than one company. So, and you're flipping back and forth, it does make it easier. So my tip, if you're going to do that, just a real quick tip, is that go to your desktop view, and I would make sure that the second company is a different color so that you don't get them mixed up. You'll notice that mine are slightly different colors. This one's navy, the other one is kind of like a light blue or something. And I'm just going down to my list here. So one of the features, I know a lot of my clients use classes. So if you go into accounting and company preferences, when you are in Pro and Premier, you can use class tracking. So you can prompt to assign classes. When you're in Enterprise, you could actually assign them. So for a lot of my clients who are in the trades, then actually some would put it towards their items list because that represents the service that they're doing, and that might indicate the class that they're doing. And for some of my other clients, it might actually be they might want to use it for names. So I know for my own business, I do assign classes to names, but a lot of my clients will assign them to items. And it's not mandatory, and you can overwrite them, but it is nice because it's one less thing you need to fill out. And sometimes if you're trying to set things up for, say, a junior person who's working in the company, that gives you another way to control. Let me see. And getting back to the custom fields real quickly, another thing one that I forgot to mention is that's really nice. So you could always do custom fields in your invoices, and you could also do them in the sales orders, the estimates, and you can even do them on a purchase order, but you couldn't do them here. So now I can actually come down here, I can right-click, and I can do customized columns, and I can actually add my custom fields as well as the sales rep. So that's a nice feature in Enterprise. Actually, before that, I was recommending a third-party product that integrated with QuickBooks to give us that capability, because some people, especially like for their sales reps, and they wanted to have the cost also associated with the sales that they were getting, and any costs that went along with that, then this gives you an easier way to track. Yeah. And let me see. Just going down to the list, default class. So another feature I find for some of my larger clients is if you're not all in the same location, then sometimes it used to be called Windows Terminal Services. It's now called Remote Desktop, RDP for short. But that gives you the ability to have a remote server, and the software is installed on that server as well as the data. And then the software is not installed on a workstation, and then you can access that. You need a very different server to do that, but for some of my clients, that's been the way to work with it, because then they can get there from anywhere that they need that. And you can't do that with Pro and Premier. Another area that is different, I talked about price levels when I was in with Premier, but one of the things that you can do with Enterprise is you can actually have more price levels than you could in Premier. So Pro and Premier, you're limited to 100. With Enterprise, you could have up to 750. And again, think about for those in larger businesses, they deal a lot with a lot of different customers. That might be of real use to them, because lots of people have more than 750 customers. So that's nice. The other thing that you can do in here is, let me go down into, I'm trying to remember where we set this up. I believe it's in here. So you can actually do price rules in here. I don't have it turned on right now, but I will go into, I'll come back and I'll show you that. With price rules, I think my complaint before was that for those of you who do a lot with, especially with I would say with inventory, where you're doing a lot of sales and there's volume on pricing and so on, that you wanted that capability. So I'm actually going to go into older version, because I'm pretty sure I've got that turned on in Enterprise to show you. So I'll come back. So you can actually do more about the pricing when you are in enterprise. So let me do a different file here. Let me pause this for a minute. Okay, I'm back. So in the sales and customers, you could actually enable what they call advanced pricing. So this comes with the platinum level of enterprise. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But what that does is it does give you different pricing that you can do with your customers. So if I go into here, I don't remember if I have any. Here's my price rules set up. So when I come in here, you can go in and you can now set your criteria. So it's certain customers maybe, and I can add, so maybe it's certain items, and maybe there's also certain classes or certain sales reps. Maybe there's a date range, and then you can set the %, and then you can also say when it applies and when it doesn't. So a lot more flexibility. So for anyone who does a lot with, I would say, sales orders, that might be something really to take a look at. The other area that it comes in, let me get into the items list and remember where it goes. Excuse me. So in the items list for an inventory item, now you can actually, so there's the button for price rules, but there's also quantity discount. So you can say that if they buy, a certain quantity, they get a break in price. And that's up to you, and you can actually say when it's effective, you can turn that off or on for certain items. But that was always one of my beefs. I'm like, why can't you do that? That's so, for so many people who sell inventory, that's a big deal. So you do need to be in enterprise for that, but you need advanced pricing. And for advanced pricing, that comes with the Platinum edition of Enterprise. But a really, really nice feature for those that really need it. So let me go back into, let's see, I think this is my Enterprise. Yep, trying to keep all my different open files here straight and going down my list here. So new in 15, there's a few other permissions, and so I can go into, I believe this is in my sales. Let me double check. Preferences. So one of the new preferences is that you don't sell to overdue customers. That being said, you can't pick and choose. That's on my wish list, but it is nice if you just want to say that they can't sell to them until there's a payment, then which is always a good idea, but I understand that there's mitigating circumstances sometimes, so it is what it is. And another thing that you can do is you can now total columns on sales and purchase order forms. So I don't remember if I've got one set up in here, but let me see if I've got subtotals. Let's see, not subs. I could type, right? So I can do under subtotals. So let me show you. I'm going to go in and actually edit an item, or add an item here. So let me do a new item, and then I can do a subtotal. But now you can choose. Before, all you could do was amount, but now you can do quantity, price, and cost. Wouldn't that be nice to be able to have on some sort of a document that your total cost, your total quantity, if you want to, especially for those of you that want to track hours, it's a great place to look, and as well as your total price. So that is an enterprise feature to be able to do that, show the cost, and then you can also show cost columns now on the sales order forms. And let me go. I'm just going down to my checklist here as I go through a few other things. I'll talk a little bit more about the subscriptions when I get to the end, but the enhanced payroll is now bundled in with the gold and higher levels. And getting back to a couple more inventory features. So if I go back to the, go into an inventory report, do a stock status here. And let me, so now what you can do is you can use available quantity for your reorder, and here's a create auto POs. So those you can't do when you are in QuickBooks Pro or Premier. We talked about, I mentioned in Premier that you can actually do assemblies. And for those of you that sometimes have what we would call nested assemblies, the unfortunate part with that is that you have to have all those smaller sub-assemblies built before you can do the final one. And in Premier, you have to manually go in and create each of those. But when you are in Enterprise, you can actually go ahead and do and build them all at once. And I don't have the, let's see if I can open up an inventory file real quickly so you could see. Try this one and see what if it's got the features that we need. And while this is switching over, a couple of the things that you can do is you can, big problem in QuickBooks is it will let you sell inventory that you don't have in your system. I understand a lot of times you actually do have it, and someone just didn't do something right in your QuickBooks, but it causes all sorts of problems from the financial end, number one. And number two, if you ever have to pay someone for the cleanup, that can be a real pain point because it can be an awful lot that you need to do. So let me find, if I wanted to build an assembly, let's pick an assembly. So here, it's letting me know, and if this one had sub-assemblies, if I look down at the bottom here, then there's actually a button here that would let me put in to automatically build the required assemblies. So let me do, see if it'll let me do. So I don't have sub-assemblies in here. I haven't paid close attention on these to see which ones do and which ones don't. But there is that option there that you could actually, it would build those smaller assemblies first. So that's always helpful to have. And then there's also a shortage report now for assemblies. So let me see if that's under the inventory. So you'll have the assembly shortage by item, by vendor, or by site. So another feature that you can have with Enterprise, and in the past it was an add-on, and now it comes with the Platinum, is you can do advanced inventory. So let me go into the preferences first so you can see what that would entail, and go to items and inventory. So here is you can do, if we turn on the advanced inventory, I don't have it turned on in here. So let me, so what you'd have here is if you have multiple locations. So this could be multiple warehouses, it could be multiple trucks, it could be, and then you could also, I've even got a couple folks that used it as departments, but if you need to track serial or lot numbers, in Pro and Premier you do average costing, but if you need to do FIFO, you can actually do that, and then if you need to do barcodes, then you can work with that as well. So this all can be, you can have this with Enterprise when you are at the Platinum level of the subscription. So very, very nice feature for those who need it. And then if you have it turned on, let me put back into this file because I'm pretty sure it's turned on. If I go into here and go into inventory, I could do the quantity on hand by site, lot numbers by site, inventory stock status by site. So you can see your locations and what you actually have on hand, and you can get down to bin levels if you need. And let me see if there's anything. I think that's about a couple more things. So so when I get into the reporting, then just like Premier, you have all the industry-specific reports, but there's two that you also pick up with Enterprise that you would not find in Premier. And if you do job costing, I've had a couple clients that for them it was worth upgrading for. So let me go back into this file where we actually have advanced inventory. This one's not going to show it. So let me switch files again real quickly and go back into this file. Hopefully that will load quickly. So there's two. One is committed cost reports, and committed cost says that you have committed that you are going to make these purchases, but they aren't booked, but you haven't actually received the bill yet in your QuickBooks, or you haven't actually made the payment yet. So they may not show up in some of your job cost reports. But if I go under jobs, time, and mileage into the committed cost by job, then what you'll see, committed costs will be like items on your purchase orders or item receipts. And I do believe there is one in here, right here. So you could actually see if I double-click on this, then you can see that we got the item receipt, but we don't have the bill. You do the same thing with a purchase order. Also, if you do payroll in QuickBooks, and I forget where it is, then you can actually get your unearned wages in here. So there's one, so you could actually see. This would show that there's time booked for this particular job by employees. You know their pay rate, and so it's letting you know what that would be. So again, it's trying to help you decide what your remaining costs are. So like I said, I had a client that went from, actually I think they went from Pro to Enterprise, and it was for this report. The other one that hasn't been fun to do, and those with bigger projects end up having to do, is the WIP summary report. So again, this lets you know your estimated versus actual, but your percent complete, how many of you have been looking for that? So it is a very helpful report for those in the job costing area. And let's see if there's anything else I wanted to mention with Enterprise. I don't have a chart in front of me to show you. I guess I should have, but it is on the chart that you've got with the feature comparison on the back page. So Enterprise went to subscription this year. At the time of this recording, the accountant is not included in the subscription pricing, but I expect that to change. So I think at some point it will go subscription. But within the subscription, they have 3 levels, and they have silver, gold, and platinum. And it says that you pay every year for your software. But when you go into the gold level of Enterprise, then you'll also pick up the enhanced payroll for unlimited employees. So for some people, that alone has been worth moving into Enterprise. And then with the platinum level, you also pick up the advanced inventory and advanced pricing that we were talking about. And then let me just double check in here, because the advanced reporting tool, I can't remember if I've got that turned on in here. I do. The advanced reporting tool is actually sometimes an issue with QuickBooks, and this is true for other software too, is that you have canned reports, and you can customize them. You can do a lot of customizing with the QuickBooks reports. And having dabbled in Access, many, many years ago, I'm just still amazed at how easy they make it. But there are still reports you can't get. So there is actually starting with 14, but also with 15, if you're an Enterprise, you get the advanced reporting. So this is not user-friendly right now, and I would say if you've got someone on staff or a person that you work with that is good with Crystal reports or Microsoft Access or ODBC, then those are areas that then you'll actually have access to more tables, so you could actually start getting some of the reports that you wanted without having to go to a third-party software. And while I'm mentioning reporting, then the other tool that is available with Enterprise is that if you go into reports and go down to custom reports, then there is ODBC, which is, let me see if I can remember, Object Database Connectivity. But in essence, it's a generic language that can pull data from QuickBooks and then use it for, again, in Excel or Access or other reporting tools. So it's been very nice because it's embedded in there, so folks have certainly used that. It does come with Enterprise. You don't find that in Pro or Premier, but I'm hoping that with the advanced reporting that many people don't need it, but just in case that is there. So the pricing for the software, I just put retail on the forms because the pricing, I get updates periodically, actually probably 2, 3, 4 times a month. So it's not worth me trying to keep these forms up to date in terms of the specials, plus the fact that there's limitations on what I'm allowed to advertise and not. So if you are interested in seeing a demo of how this would really work for your business, or if you want to know more information about the pricing for you, you can buy licenses from 1 up to 10 individually, and then after 10 it goes up to 30. But if you're interested in any of those, I'll be happy to let you know what the current pricing is and any discounts that you would be able to obtain. So if you have any other questions, then please reach out to us. But I do hope that you have found that this demo has been helpful as far as highlighting a lot of the key differences between Enterprise and Premier. And thank you for your time. Bye-bye.